Welcome to the Personal Computer Show. Today is January the 22nd, 2020. A shout out to all the military men and women serving our country. We thank you for your services. I'm Hank Key and my colleague is Joe King. Do you know who has your personal data? Do you know how Facebook, Google, Amazon, and other big tech companies are using your personal data? Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the programs available on prn.fm, on the Internet, and pcradioshow.org. To listen to the live program on the telephone each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the number is 641-793-7091. You can leave us a message with your question or comment at hank@pcradioshow.org. In the news, Gary Starkweather, inventor of the laser printer, Bose closing half its retail outlets, and Android fleeceware apps from the Play Store. Feature segments, IT Pro Series by Benjamin Rockwell, IT is not a cost center or profit center. From the Tech Corner, I'll be covering cord cutting is no longer just a trickle, changes in radio listening, and what options do you have now for Windows 7? All Hands on Tech by Marty Winston, and he'll be talking about Star Trek sensing for smartphones. But first, the tech news of the week. Gary Starkweather, inventor of the laser printer. He originally received pushback from his employer, Xerox. Gary Starkweather, an engineer and inventor who designed the first laser printer, passed away on December the 26th at a hospital in Orlando, Florida. He was 81. Mr. Starkweather was working as a junior engineer in the offices of the Xerox Corporation in Rochester, New York in 1964, several years after the company had introduced a photocopier. He had the idea of using the precision of a laser to print more refined images straight from a printer. Because his idea ventured away from the company's core business, copiers, he was told that if he did not stop working on the project, his entire team would be laid off. He soon finagled a move to the company's new research lab in Northern California, where a group of visionaries were developing what would become the most important digital technologies of the next 3 decades, including the personal computer as it's known today. His move to Xerox PARC came after he read about the lab in the company's newsletter. After visiting Xerox PARC in 1970, he telephoned his wife in cold Rochester and asked how she felt about moving to sunny Palo Alto. Her response, he recalled, was, "Honey, I'll have the furniture in the street by the time you get home." At the Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC, Mr. Starkweather built the first working laser printer in 1971 in less than 9 months. By the 1990s, it was a staple in the offices around the world. By the new millennium, it was nearly ubiquitous in homes as well. As he developed his printer, his new colleagues built a personal computer that could drive it, the Alto, a machine that eventually gave way to the Apple Macintosh and Microsoft Windows PCs. We pay tribute to the passing of a pioneer who invented the laser printer. Another one bites the dust. Bose closes half its retail outlets. U.S. sound equipment company Bose has long been a leader in its field. It was founded in 1964 by MIT professor Amar Bose. It maintains its headquarters in Massachusetts. MIT is its main shareholder. The company product ranges such as home audio systems, speakers, sound-canceling headphones, wearables, professional audio products, and car audio systems. The company had revenues of approximately $4 billion in 2019 and employs more than 9,000 people. In addition, Bose has a network of 249 company-owned stores in several countries, typically located in shopping centers. The stores are for users to try out, evaluate, experience, or request assistance for its products. The first of the stores in this proprietary network opened in the United States in 1993, but now, according to the latest news, Bose is preparing to close all 119 outlets in its network in North America, Europe, Japan, and Australia over the next few months due to changing consumer habits that have seen more and more people buy online. The company is a private and non-listed company. Stores are experiencing a real crossover at the hands of e-commerce. It is becoming increasingly difficult to justify the investment in premises, staff, and inventory, and even more so when the shift in buying habits towards e-commerce. This trend is even stronger in consumer electronics. It is also happening in many other sectors, an epidemic that is progressively depopulating the streets of our cities. Even in cities like New York, which are subject to very high rental costs, the transition has been evident for several years now and is filling more and more blocks with for rent signs. If you've been planning to buy or return something to a nearby Bose store, you might want to do it soon because the well-known audio equipment maker is about to close 119 stores, including every retail location in the United States. According to Bose, the reason for the closings is due to a rise in online purchases and a consumer shift away from brick-and-mortar retail locations. In addition to closing every U.S. retail location, Bose 119 closing also includes shutting down every Bose store in North America, Europe, Japan, and Australia. Bose says it expects to close stores over the next several months, at which point Bose will have 130 retail stores left globally spread across China, the UAE, India, South Korea, and Southeast Asia. As part of the plan, Bose will also be forced to lay off potentially hundreds of employees. However, because Bose is not a publicly traded company, there is no requirement for the company to disclose exactly how many employees will be affected, or even if the move to close retail stores was spurred by a recent dip in sales. As a consolation, Bose says it will offer affected employees some kind of severance package and will help them find jobs through an outplacement assistance program. Given the dramatic shift to online shopping in specific markets, Bose plans to close its remaining 119 retail stores across North America, Europe, Japan, and Australia over the next several months. In other parts of the world, Bose stores will remain open, including approximately 130 stores located in Greater China and the United Arab Emirates, and additional stores in India, Southeast Asia, and South Korea. Android fleeceware apps from the Play Store. What is fleeceware? The cybersecurity firm Sophos first coined the term fleeceware last September after it discovered a new type of financial fraud taking place on the Google Play Store. The term itself refers to apps that abuse the ability to offer trial periods to users before their accounts are charged. It's now part of the Urban Dictionary. Security researchers from Sophos say they've discovered a new set of fleeceware apps that appear to have been downloaded and installed by more than 600 million Android users. These fleeceware applications overcharge consumers for functionality widely available in other free low-cost applications. The term fleeceware is a recent addition to the cybersecurity jargon. It was coined by UK cybersecurity firm Sophos last September, following an investigation that discovered a new type of financial fraud on the official Google Play Store. It refers to apps that abuse the ability for Android apps to run trial periods before payment is charged to the user's account. By default, all users who sign up for an Android app trial period have to cancel the trial period manually to avoid being charged. However, most users just uninstall an app when they don't like it. The vast majority of app developers interpret this action, a user uninstalling the app, as a trial period cancellation, and they don't bother to follow through with a charge. But last year, Sophists discovered that some Android app developers didn't cancel an app's trial period once the app is uninstalled and they don't receive a specific request from the user. Sophists said it initially discovered 24 Android apps that were charging obscene fees between $100 and $240 per year for the most basic and simplistic apps such as QR barcode reader and calculators. Sophist researchers call these apps fleeceware. Sophist said it discovered another set of Android fleeceware apps that have continued to abuse the app trial mechanism to impose charges to users after they uninstall an app. These apps were installed by more than 600 million users. The numbers seem high, but sophists, they suspect the apps might have used third-party pay-per-install services to boost install counts and then bought fake 5-star reviews to boost their ranking on the Play Store and attract a large number of users. It's very likely that not all users who install these apps sign up for a trial period. When you run any of these apps, the app prompts the user to sign up for a very short free trial period, usually 3 days, through an interface within the app itself. The app makers require you to sign up with payment information before you can run the app, and many users fail to understand the requirement that in order to drop out of the trial, you have to explicitly tell the developer that they are canceling the trial period. Many simply forget to do so or think that uninstalling the app constitutes a cancellation, but the app developers don't see it that way. In many reviews for fleeceware apps, users report that they fail to unsubscribe from the trial period and get charged very high amounts of money. Sophos Labs have discovered a collection of Android apps on Google Play Market whose sole purpose appears to be to severely overcharge users for mobile apps that provide very simple functionality available on low-cost or free apps. The app developers take advantage of a business model available within the Play Market ecosystem in which users can download and use the apps at no charge for a short trial period. When the trial expires, if the user who downloads and installs one of these apps has not bothered to uninstall the application and inform the developer that they do not wish to continue to use the app developer charges the user. In a categorical gray area that isn't overtly malware, and it isn't a potentially unwanted app, so the term has been coined fleeceware because their defining characteristic is that they overcharge users for functionality that's widely available in free and low-cost apps. What is the fleeceware business model? Because the apps themselves aren't engaging in any kind of traditionally malicious activity, they skirt the rules that would otherwise make it easy for Google to justify removing them from the Play Market. Their developers also seem to be very good at staying under the radar from security vendors. When you run any of these apps, the app prompts the user to sign up for a very short trial period, usually 3 days, through an interface within the app itself. The app makers require you to sign up with payment information before you can run the app, and many users fail to understand the requirement that in order to drop out of the trial, they have to explicitly tell the developer that they are canceling the trial period. Many simply forget to do so or think that uninstalling the app constitutes a cancellation. But the app developers don't see it that way. In many reviews for fleeceware apps, users report they fail to unsubscribe from the trial period and get charged very high amounts of money. It's a business model that walks a fine ethical line. But it is apparently successful. Some percentage of users will fail to cancel the trial even if they intended to do so. And the app makers earn their keep on the backs of users who forget to unsubscribe or ask for a refund within the short window in which they can do so. With millions of installations, in some cases, if even a small percentage of users forgets to cancel their subscription before the trial period lapses, app creators can make significant money. Of course, they can cancel anytime, but this is a bit pricier than, say, a typical magazine subscription. Once you've been charged, there's hardly any recourse to get your money back. Google Play Market actually permits these types of transactions because they follow the rules for in-app purchases. While they are clearly consumer hostile, the apps are not otherwise malicious, and they do actually perform the function they claim to be able to do. If you're interested in a trial version of an application, don't bother with it if it is conditional on having your credit card account first. App users see trial notifications like this one when they launch the apps that engage in this practice for the first time. People who sign up for the trial are required to provide payment information the first time they launch the app using Google's in-app payments. Of course, they can cancel anytime, but this is a bit pricier than, say, a typical magazine subscription. Once you've been charged, there's hardly any recourse to get your money back. Google Play Market actually permits these types of transactions because they follow the rules for in-app purchases. While they are clearly consumer hostile, the apps are not otherwise malicious, and they do actually perform the function they claim to be able to do. So, for those who are Android users, you've been warned. Cord cutting is no longer just a trickle. Here's how much Americans pay for cable channels that they don't watch. 57 channels and nothing on is a song written and performed by Bruce Springsteen back in 1992. The song title may be a reference to cable television, which carries more channels than terrestrial television. In reality, for most traditional cable customers, there's nearly 200 channels and a few things on. According to a Nielsen report, there is a major drop in TV watching from an estimated average of slightly under 9 hours a day to an estimated average of slightly over 5 hours a day in just 3 years. Most of us now aren't using most of the pay TV package that we're paying for. The problem is that most people only watch a fraction of the channels they have access to, according to a new study from cordcutting.com. What are people watching? The average man reported watching 12 channels, while the average woman only watched 10. That makes it not very surprising that 81.9% of those surveyed felt they wasted money on their TV bill. That means given the small number of channels they watch, the average respondent are spending over $1,000 on unused channels per year. Well, that's one way to look at it, but that logic suggests that all channels are equal, and they're not in reality. A channel like ESPN costs more than $6, while lesser channels can cost only a few cents. The reality, though, is that even if people watch mostly the most expensive channels, they're still paying for a lot of cable that they're not watching. So what does that all mean? The data clearly suggests that most people would be better off cutting the cord when it comes to price, but that may mean sacrificing a favorite channel. A streaming service like Dish Sling, for example, offers access to many but not all of the channels above for a fraction of the cost of cable. Given that the 4 broadcast networks all rate among the most popular and in many cases can be received over the air, this report suggests that cord cutting will accelerate because it's becoming easier for customers to get what they want without cable, even if they have to use multiple providers to get it. The negative is that as this happens, either through cord cutting or cable companies offering skinny bundles or a la carte pricing, a lot of lesser watched channels are going to get squeezed out of the business. These channels are essentially subsidized by the cable bundle, and while they may only get a few pennies per subscriber, those pennies keep them alive. Yes, you're wasting money, and maybe a lot of money, on your cable bill. That will likely lead more and more people to cut the cord or trim the cord, which will alter the cable universe. It's a case where you may not save as much as you think because over time, subscribers loss will force even the better watched stations to raise their prices. That could create a situation where people pay a little less, not a lot, to get a lot less. A new forecast predicts cord cutting will accelerate over the next 4 years. It started as a trickle and now is threatening to become a flood. The phenomenon of cord cutting or limiting pay TV subscriptions by cable or satellite companies is about to get even bigger, according to a report released by eMarketer, a research firm. Households that have cut the cord will soar by 19.2% this year, and by year's end, 40.2 million households will have eliminated their pay TV subscriptions, compared to 86.5 million who will still have them. The difference between those numbers will shrink too over the next few years. By 2023, the number of households without pay TV will hit 56.1 million, while those with pay TV will fall to 72.7 million. In fact, by 2021, more than a fifth of U.S. households will have cut the cord. The telco companies don't appear to be doing much to keep those customers. The report states that cord-cutting growth could partially be inflicted by TV providers themselves, as many are now prioritizing profit over revenues. Subscribers often drop services when they get to the end of the promotional deal and prices skyrocket. As programming costs continue to increase, cable, satellite, and telco operators are finding it difficult to turn a profit on some TV subscriptions. Their answer has been to raise prices across the board, and it seems that they're willing to lose customers rather than retain them with unprofitable deals. This has been a boon for TV providers who also offer broadband internet, as it removes consumers from bundled deals. It forces consumers to pay a higher price for internet, which dramatically improves profit margin. Traditional multi-channel video programming distributors, otherwise known as MVPDs, the cable, satellite, and telco companies that offer TV service will lose about 5.1% of subscribers in 2020 to cord cutting, up from an earlier forecast of 3.3%. They believe there is greater downside risk than upside potential to the 2020 forecast. Subscriber losses are expected at the two satellite TV operators, Dish Network and AT&T DirecTV. Pay TV cable subscriber losses are expected to climb to 3.1%. Rising prices for virtual pay TV service will make them less attractive, while consumers are also facing a barrage of new streaming video on demand services by 2020. Pay TV services are also vulnerable to an economic downturn. The ratings implications are mixed. Cable companies can manage an increase in the pace of cord cutting thanks to their broadband service, but media and entertainment companies will come under pressure if overall TV subscriber losses accelerate. MarketWatch noted that cable, satellite, and telecom companies that offer TV services are projected to lose about 5.1% of subscribers in 2020 due to cord cutting. This projection comes as no surprise, as the growing cord cutting trend has shown no signs of slowing down. Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus are definitely some of the biggest names tied to cord cutting, as the list of streaming services continues to grow. From a consumer's point of view, this is great, because we're paying for things now that we don't use, and we should only be paying for what we do use. Last week, iHeartMedia posted a statement on its website saying they were launching a new organizational structure as a way to modernize and take advantage of new technologies. The same day that the statement was released, reports indicated that stations across the country had been laying off employees. iHeartRadio online platform for music, podcasts, and live radio station feeds. Fewer people are aware that its parent, iHeartMedia, formerly known as Clear Channel, is a media megalith that owns more than 850 radio stations. That's a lot. Last week, they laid off an estimated 850 people from an overall employee base of 12,500. What they did announce are new plans to leverage technology and artificial intelligence advancements to allow more consolidation. Some radio industry insiders interpret this as meaning less live programming and more syndication. The trends and facts on radio listening in 2019 shows that the percentage of Americans who have listened to a podcast has also substantially increased over the last decade. As of 2019, 51% of Americans ages 12 or older have listened to a podcast. 82% have listened to a podcast in the past month, up from 26% in 2018 and just 9% in 2008. This trend impacts how radio listeners are increasingly moving to receive their listening program content from live to download on demand as a podcast. The Personal Computer Show can be heard live streaming on prn.fm, and the podcast is available weekly on prn.fm on the internet, pcradioshow.org, and is available on all the major podcast apps. If a search in the app does not find it, you can manually subscribe with our RSS feed found on our website, pcradioshow.org. Presenting Benjamin Rockwell. IT is not a cost center or profit center.
This is Benjamin Rockwell. I'm an IT professional. I've been doing it for 30 years now. And this is where I get into the business side of IT. I want to bring you some of my past experience, my current experience with IT, and give you some insight in regards to how the business world works with IT, or in this case, how I think it should work. And a lot of people ask me, what is my biggest pet peeve? What is the biggest business item that I wish people inside the business would realize about IT? And IT is often considered a cost center, and it's treated as a cost center. It doesn't provide any profit for the company. It doesn't provide any business. We're not making sales through IT. IT doesn't have any salespeople. It's not producing any product. It's not doing this. It's not doing that. It's not doing this. It's not doing that. All it does is it's a drain. It's a financial drain on our entire company, and we should just get rid of it. Okay, they don't actually say that last part. They don't actually say we need to get rid of it. But when you relegate IT to that mental image of it's just a cost center, when you start saying it's just a financial drain on the company, you are not thinking about information technology in the proper way. I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of people that are going to sit down and they're going to tell me from a financial perspective, it's a cost center, not a profit center. And they close their mind down to that little bean counting, that little bits and bytes. It's A or B. It's not C. And they try to just drive it down into that small little definition. I will tell you right now, try working your company right now, today. Try running it for 1 week without any of your information technology items. Yeah, that includes your system, your personal desktop. That includes your server. That includes the phone systems. Phone systems, yes, they normally come in under, information technology. Your copiers. Yeah, we used to do without most of that. We used to free ourselves from any kind of technology before we actually had the technology. But now that technology has arrived, it's provided us with better ways to do things. Today, right now, we no longer have these paper memos going around the office. You remember that? We used to do that all the time. Even after technology came along and we all had email, people were still handing out memos. They don't hand out memos anymore. It usually comes via email. We used to have copy clerks. Do you remember that? You remember we used to have somebody that would just stand in front of the copier and they would make copies all day long. We no longer have that because we've empowered people to, yes, go figure out the copier. Here, it's pretty easy. You put the paper in here, you press 3 because you want 3 copies, and then you hit the big green button. It's exciting. Do you know when I learned how to make a copy? I would think I was 11 years old, maybe 12 years old. But yeah, we had copy clerks. I was amazed when I learned this. You mean there are people that are paid to do this? Really? This is really one of the most boring jobs I could ever think about. And then we had file clerks. These days, no, we file everything electronically. We're actually expected on our own to do a good job of filing. And I've seen people's hard drives. I've seen people's network drives. They're anything but organized, but that's across the board. That's everywhere. So I'm not casting dispersions on any listeners. Look, I have that same problem too. But here's the thing. We start forgetting about all of the old ways of doing things. Yeah, I got my email. What happens if your email isn't working? You don't think it's a cost center anymore. It's costing you because you cannot get to your email. Information technology empowers your company to leverage technology to do better. Information technology is, yes, it is a financial cost, but it is a cost of doing business in the modern world. Any information technology worker should be providing a benefit to the company on a scale that you probably would never have imagined. Yes, they're streamlining IT processes. They're keeping all of the hardware running. They're doing a lot of different things. But if you leverage your IT worker properly, they can actually help you with strategies and objectives of the company. One of the things that we struggle with is we give IT staffers this idea, okay, you're going to set up email and you're going to keep the servers running, you're going to keep the data there, and you're going to keep all of the programs patched and everything like that. Instead, I want to challenge you. Go to your IT manager, your IT worker. I don't know how large of a company you work for, but give them a business problem to solve. They may look at it a completely different way than you. They may look at it the same way as you, but they will solve that problem because most IT people are problem solvers. And yeah, they're going to use technology to solve it, and they're going to use technology in a way that you may not imagine, in a way that will make the company a lot more money, a lot more benefit. And it's not going to be all the time. And they may not be able to solve it. They may not be the biggest, greatest person in IT for strategy, but many of them are. Give them a chance. It could be quite exciting. This is Benjamin Rockwell. Back to you, Hank.
Thank you, Benjamin. Have you been procrastinating on Windows 7? I hope not. Some people just wait till the very last minute. Are you still running with Windows 7? It is important for you to move to a supported operating system that is a lot more secure than Windows 7. Here are what options you have if you're still running Windows 7. You can continue to run Windows 7 without any security updates, or, of course you're not going to do that, and that's not recommended, or purchase extended security updates, which was announced back in September of 2018 by Microsoft, that it will offer extended security updates for Windows 7, which includes updates for Internet Explorer through January 2023, or upgrade to Windows 10. By moving to Windows 10, you will have free security updates, feature updates, and product support. A primary reason why you may continue to use Windows 7 is an application you're using is just not supported and is mission critical for your operation. You'll find there's no equivalent replacement application. This is especially true where you are using a vertical application. A vertical application is any software application that supports a specific business process and targets a smaller number of users. Some may choose to run Windows 7 without support because its use is within a dedicated in-house system that is not connected to any outside communication system or network. An example of this is in medical devices such as a magnetic resonance imaging machine. The security issues with Windows 7 would then be de minimis. Well, it's now after January 14th, and the only people who will receive extended security updates, which is ESUs, will be business and education customers willing to pay for them. Microsoft announced there would be continued support for users of Windows 7 Professional and Windows 7 Enterprise or volume licensing of Windows 7 Professional. Following the end of its extended support period, ESU will be available to all Windows 7 Professional and Windows 7 Enterprise customers with volume licensing through January 2023. During the first year of extended support period, January 2020 to 2021, those using Windows 7 Enterprise will pay $25 per machine. This doubles to $50 in the second year, and it goes up to $100 for the third year. Staying on Windows 7 Pro is going to cost even more. Extended support usage will start at $50 before going up to $100 in year 2 and $200 during year 3. This, however, will provide an extended 3-year support for users as well as software publishers to have the application upgraded, or you have developed an alternate solution and you no longer need that mission-critical application that runs on Windows 7. Before you decide to upgrade your system from Windows 7 to Windows 10, you need to know what hardware configuration you really need to run Windows 10. I bought a Dell laptop on Black Friday back in 2016. It is configured with 32 GB storage and 4 GB RAM. These items were soldered onto the motherboard. The laptop today struggles to run Windows 10 build 1903. I don't recommend any system hardware purchase when RAM and storage is soldered and not removable. If your Windows 7 system configuration is less than what I just mentioned, you'll be better off to buy a new system. Even if your configuration with or without hardware upgrade meets those minimum requirements, the hardware upgrade path is not practical. Why? Because with each Windows 10 upgrade, the hardware requirement keeps escalating. Today, to run Windows 10 decently, you'll need 8 GB of RAM and a minimum 128 GB of storage. The processor needs to be rated Passmark CPU value of 2000 or more. You may or may not have to do a hardware upgrade to meet the minimum requirements. Its cost will be a factor whether or not you do the upgrade. Let's say you have concluded that you can use the existing system to run Windows 10, and the upgrade configuration is still cost-effective for your needs. Then the option is do the upgrade. Before proceeding to do the Windows 7 to Windows 10 upgrade, back up the entire storage drive, including all the hidden partitions. When you're ready, make sure the laptop or desktop is running on AC power. If you have access to Windows 10 build distribution released in 2015 or 2016, they can still be used for a free upgrade of Windows 7 to Windows 10. The download sites for these builds can be found doing a search on the internet. With these builds, you can upgrade your Windows 7 system with application and data, where it's applicable, to Windows 10, or the option to do the upgrade with a clean Windows 10 installation and just use the Windows 10 licensing ID to do a clean install. Normally, the Windows 7 to Windows 10 upgrade process should bring all your apps along for the ride. However, there are cases where it might not. Your apps might not appear, and you might not be able to select the option to bring them along during the upgrade. Or your upgrade might not even work unless you first remove apps that can't make the jump to Windows 10 for whatever reason. After the upgrade, test each application that was installed on the Windows 7 hardware system, which was moved over to run under Windows 10. If the application you must have is not compliant on Windows 10 at this point, and if you still have access to the application distribution media, you may want to give it one more college try of doing a clean Windows 10 install followed by reinstalling the latest version of the application you're using. If that too fails, the only option you have at this point is to then restore from the backup you had prepared earlier. If you have mission-critical applications that are not compliant with Windows 10, there are, at present, no other alternatives. You will have to think hard about option 2, which is buy the maintenance support, which is not really expensive for a small business, as you may have up to 3 years to migrate to another alternative. Of course, it all depends on how many machines you need to support in your operation. When Windows 7 was introduced to replace Windows XP, Microsoft built into the Windows 7 operating system Windows XP compatibility mode. Other than marketing reasons, there really isn't any technical reasons why Microsoft cannot build into Windows 10 the compatibility mode for Windows 7. Computer World estimates that 29.7% of Windows machines today, which comes out to 446 million to be specific, will still be running Windows 7 come January the 31st. That's a massive number of machines, and you might understandably be a little bit skeptical of it, but if so, let's say it's off by 100%. Let's say there's only 200 million machines running Windows 7. It is still quite significant. For the reasons stated previously and more, such as Windows 10's spotty history with update stability, Windows 7 has plenty of stubborn holdouts. When I go for my medical lab test, I feel much more confident that the MRI machine is running under Windows 7 and not Windows 10. If you feel like becoming a Windows 10 convert, you can still do it for free. Go to it. Presenting Marty Winston, Star Trek Sensing for Smartphones.
Are you reading my life signs? Any life signs? Well, don't worry about it. I'm pre-recorded. But if the phrase seems familiar, you may have, at some point in your life, seen a Star Trek TV episode or movie. I want to focus on one of their hand props, a thing roughly the size of a tin of canned meat. They call it a tricorder. If you're writing scripts for that show, it's really convenient to have something that can instantly, or in just a few seconds, take and announce readings or record things. The lore suggests that you could configure a tricorder for medical readings, or for scientific readings, or as a general-purpose device. We saw it used as a video camera and recorder, as a lie detector, as how to determine whether something is alive, as a medical diagnostic tool, as a radiation detector, and some other things too. How many of those things can your smartphone do today, and what will it take to do more of those things? How much will be built into the phone, and how much can add to that through USB or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connected accessories? And by the way, there are forces who will want to stall that. I'm pretty deep geek when it comes to the underlying technologies and their abilities, and I can tell you that a lot of what the fictional device could do is either in or available for the nonfiction section of your smartphone apparatus equipage. Now, I have a few choices in how to present this. I could talk about tricorder functions and how to duplicate them in contemporary tech. But I think that instead, I should talk about the available tech and how, in each case, it can be used for those tricorder functions as well as others. Let's start with capturing video, which smartphones have been able to do for a long time now. Most of the video that most people want to shoot involves only the visible spectrum of light, things you can see. And today's smartphones are attuned to that. But they don't have to be stuck with only that. Just beyond the visible range, Near-infrared on the one side and long-wave ultraviolet on the other add interesting information and are relatively inexpensive to add. What I'd also like you to keep in mind about this kind of multispectral imaging, it's been in use for decades. For example, it's how satellites track climate conditions, crop health, and ocean currents. It's also part of the bag of tricks on board deep space probes, not to mention spy planes, and so on. Lately, I've seen tons of improvements in tiny and economical gas sensors. They're able today to monitor levels of oxygen, of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, humidity, combustible gases, volatile organic compounds, VOCs for short, and more. It's not just about being around fumes. Hey, no question but that knowing about fumes is important. There are other applications. For example, certain medical or physiological conditions can change the mix of gases that come through our skin. Some fabrics and some plastics emit fumes that may have dangerous elements. Not to mention questions like, is this meat fresh? Are these veggies still any good? Is the milk safe to drink? And is this cheese that funny color because it's bad or just because it's Roquefort? And how can you tell when Roquefort goes bad? So far, then, we are using vision beyond the human visual range in gas detection that does many things better than educated nostrils. What about health? Private pilots wear a gizmo on their fingertips that monitors both their pulse rate and their blood oxygen level. It's called a pulse oximeter, and you can find them on Amazon for less than $20. But the same tricks that it uses to see blood patterns without piercing the skin are already being used by the fingerprint readers in many smartphones, and similar tech is in a lot of wristband wearables. That's one of those corners of tech that can be both cheap and easy to add, but that I don't expect to see for a while. I'll explain that in a few minutes. There's weather. Most to all of the tech that you need to keep tabs on conditions is already in your phone, and any missing pieces are inexpensive to add, but again, it isn't the tech that puts this on hold for now. Thanks to self-driving cars, LiDAR modules are getting smaller and cheaper. LiDAR is a little like radar, but with lasers instead of radio waves and uses whiskers of light to do its sensing. There are many inexpensive tools that use a single LiDAR whisker to measure distances. That would be very easy to add to a phone. All of these sensors are contemporary, available today. If integrated into a smartphone, they have the potential of transforming it into a test and analysis platform that can do what the tricorder did in the fictional Star Trek universe, and very likely do considerably more. It's probably not the component costs that are holding it back. I'll be speculating now, but I have some hefty suspicions about why these are still marvels of mañana. Cost may be part of it, but you have to think like both an engineer and a product manager when considering costs. The costs of the sensors, not huge. At the scale of smartphone manufacturing runs, the raw number of units being built, component costs get driven down dramatically and quickly. I don't believe that adding these sensors to smartphones will add more than $100 to $200 to their retail price, and probably less. But it would be like adding a jet fighter cockpit to a minivan. Sensors aren't the whole picture. To do the level of analysis all of this implies means a much more macho microprocessor, much more memory, and higher power density batteries, so all of that doesn't kill the phone's runtime per charge. Those elements will need their specific categories levels of tech to ramp up. I sense that could happen in the next 2 to 3 years. But technology is not the only hurdle. And the best way I can claw into your mind with an explanation of that is by very specifically asking you to think about Star Trek's medical tricorder. Let's say I can reach into the future and bring back a smartphone that can constantly track your vital signs, monitor the gases evaporating from your sweat or coming through your skin, or riding out on your breath when you exhale, all of those outside-in kind of measurements. There's your phone screen with all those numbers and that whole rundown of what it just detected, and what then? What are you going to do with that information? Have you graduated medical school? Are you a doctor? Do you think some future, more elaborate alternative to WebMD can do a flawlessly accurate diagnosis and give you unerring advice? Think about it. All of that can turn your smartphone or your tricorder into a feeding ground for class action lawsuits. And there's the biggest slowdown of all. If you're in top management of a big player in the smartphone industry, is the extra functionality for users worth the cost of the liability coverage and lawyers? You don't need to have a master's in business administration to read that as a management edict to keep kicking that can down the road. For me, by the way, I take the same issue with most wearables, not to mention those alleged cures for things that if you buy now, they'll double your order, per the late-night TV commercial. Smartphones can and will keep getting closer to tricorder functionality, but I'm guessing that will happen more through baby steps than any giant leaps where no one has gone before. Next time, I'll be looking at small-scale power sources that can get things running where it's inconvenient to connect power lines. A little wind, a little more solar, but beyond those forces of nature, other elements naturally fall into the picture. I'll talk about getting power outdoors, and you can stay cozy and warm indoors when I do. Let's hook up.
Thank you, Marty. Public service announcements. Computer club meetings in the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut tri-state region. The computer clubs have random access sessions at each of these club meetings. If you have any questions or need for technical advice, the club members are more than happy to assist. There is no such thing as a dumb question. All these computer club meetings are open and free to the public. The Brookdale Computer Users Group has a presentation on current trends in personal technology Thursday, January the 23rd. Meeting time is 6:45 p.m., and they meet at the Middletown Library Large Meeting Room, 55 New Monmouth Road in Middletown, New Jersey. Westchester PC Users Group, presentation on how to smartify your home, Thursday, February the 6th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Keller Williams New York Realty, and it's located at 120 Bloomingdale Road in White Plains, New York. Amateur Computer Group of New Jersey meets Friday, February the 7th. Meeting time is 8 p.m. in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. New York Amateur Computer Club has a meeting on Thursday, February the 13th. Meeting time is 7 p.m. at NYU 32 Waverly Place, the Silver Building, and check at the front desk for the room number, and that's in Manhattan, New York. Long Island Macintosh Users Group, meeting on Friday, February the 14th. Hey, that's Valentine's Day. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Old Westbury campus at the New York Institute of Technology, and they meet at the Harry J. Scher Hall, and that's located in Westbury, New York. Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the program is available on prn.fm, on the Internet, and pcradioshow.org. If you have any questions for us, just send us an email addressed to hank@pcradioshow.org. There is no such thing as a stupid question. In the meantime, stay in touch, and remember to do regular backups. I'm Hank Key, and on behalf of Joe King, Michael Horowitz, Marty Winston, Benjamin Rockwell, and Mark Leoso, we thank you for listening. Father Winter's here, and it is cold. Stay safe and healthy until we meet again, same time, same station next week.